Welcome to this week's Rob's Country. We're going to catch up with Jim Grierson on a big paddock of black currants. We're going to have a bit of a catch up with the brand new 2014 South Island Farmer of the Year. And we're going to be talking law. But in just a moment, in fact right now, we can talk about lamb vaccines. What's the difference between the different 5 and 1s?
Okay, so I think the big difference for people to get a really good grasp on is the difference between 5 and 1 vaccine and what we traditionally call lamb vaccine. And the hallmark of that difference is all in the type of immunity that we're getting. So most people nowadays have heard about antibodies, which is obviously a very important part of immunity. And generally what's required for this to happen is that our immune systems need to be exposed to certain proteins from infectious organisms, and then our body will respond in part by producing antibodies to that particular protein derived from the infectious bug, and then on a second exposure that bug will then be attacked by our immune system once it's coated in antibody. But of course, as I've just inferred, that takes a little bit of time to happen, and in very young animals we can also get an issue where the immunity that's derived from the mother's first milk, the colostrum, can interfere with any vaccine working to establish that process. And so in some situations we will administer ready-made antibodies to the animal, which will give immunity for a very short period of time. So in particular, when we're talking about lamb vaccine as opposed to 5 and 1 vaccine, tetanus is the big disease that we really get concerned about taking hold very quickly, because generally this vaccine is given at the time of docking. So we have a docking wound that's there,
where the thing
able
tetanus
to
can get in.
Exactly. And so if that little lamb hasn't been exposed previously, which is highly unlikely, and we just give it a first exposure to a normal vaccine, as we see in 5 and 1, there's going to be no immunity invoked in time to give protection for that tetanus. So in lamb vaccine, which is given at the time of docking, the tetanus protection is involved or occurs through the provision of ready-made antibody, which has been manufactured actually in another animal, and this animal is usually a horse that's been exposed to tetanus toxin and produced antibodies against it, and then these antibodies have been extracted from the blood of that horse and put into the product.
And there's no sort of rejection of a different blood type or...
Very unlikely. I mean, I'm not a manufacturing pharmacologist, but you know, we're very good at sorting these problems out, and I've yet to hear of a real problem occurring.
It's small enough anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So lamb vaccine contains those ready-made antibodies, and it does have vaccine that protects against the other biggie for rapidly growing lambs, which is of course pulpy kidney, whereas the 5 and 1 vaccine, that means that the animal itself, the lamb itself, has to manufacture the immunity itself. 5 and 1 vaccine also contains what we call antigens, which are proteins that invoke an immunity to different bugs. So that contains antigens to 5 different diseases, so tetanus, pulpy kidney, and another 3 diseases, malignant edema, black
sort of
disease.
white leg and white sort of stuff.
Exactly, but of course it needs a number of exposures, at least 2 exposures of the vaccine before we get good, robust immunity developing, and that needs to be separated in 5 and 1 vaccine by about 6 weeks apart. And so of course it's far too late when you're giving the first injection at the time that the docking wound's already sustained. So to get over that, we give them ready-made antibody right at the time, and that protects against that. There is another way of inducing good immunity with 5 and 1 without having to use lamb vaccine, and that is a really clever little technique where we invoke immunity or boosted the immunity in the ewe about 4 to 6 weeks before lambing, and then at the time when she lambs, she's producing this colostrum, which I mentioned before, the immunity that passes through the milk, and we've got really high levels of immunity for those diseases that get passed through the milk to the lamb, and we invoke immunity for a long period
It's
of time.
interesting that you're talking about colostrum, because I would have thought it would have gone through the placenta and when it was in the womb still.
No, so the placenta is very, very isolated from the immune system, and unfortunately it's why we do get some certain problems, particularly in foals. We get a problem, it's got a really big name, we call it rhesus foals, where if the foal's blood type is different from the mother's blood type, and the mother's been somehow accidentally exposed to the differing blood type that the foal has, then she will pass immunity against that blood type through her milk, and we can get very, very sick foals from ingesting the antibodies from the mother that are made to damage the foreign blood cells that they've got. So we can get anemic foals from drinking the antibodies from their mum. So yeah, very, very isolated. The fetus and embryo is very isolated immunologically from the mother. So very separate entities. It is interesting.
So very briefly, when do you add you're docking and you're giving them tetanus then?
Okay.
That's the lamb one, and then when you do the 5-in-1?
Yep. So in a lamb that's not been exposed previously and the mother has not been vaccinated, lamb vaccine at the time of docking, and then another exposure, usually again with lamb vaccine at around the time of weaning, should protect against tetanus and pulpy kidney and set you up for a healthy lamb ready to go to slaughter.
So you keep it alive so it can die?
Absolutely. That's what farming's all about.
It is what farming's all about. Nick, thank you very much. We're going to have a look at technology straight after the break.
Airtech wastewater treatment systems are the future here now. Easy to use and efficient, these sewage plants are already where the environmentalists are heading. You can relax as new rules come into place. A series of chambers does the work while you reap the benefits. Easy to landscape, they're ideal for new homes or as a replacement for an old septic tank. Airtech wastewater treatment system, your advantage when dealing with grey or black water. See the RX Plastics website for details or contact RX Environmental.
When we were kids, saving the world seemed like the easiest thing you could do. But the world has changed, and the problems are bigger than we'd ever imagined. People are starving, the environment is under pressure, the climate is changing fast, and we are running out of fresh water. There's so much distraction, it can get hard to see where you can make a difference. With so many other things going on, where do you start? Well, feeding the world gets a little easier when you start by planting the right seed. Protecting the future is possible when you know how and have help. And if we work together to tackle the big challenges, everyone can live well. At Lincoln, we're on a mission to feed the world, protect the future, and help everyone live well. So don't settle for just any future. Join us and make a difference.
At NCRE, there is no job too big or too tough. We can take care of all your air conditioning, heating and electrical needs. NCRE, we'll get you sorted.
Irrigation is the future for farming in New Zealand, but like any technology, you can't be expected to get the most out of it on your own. Hydro Services is the key to maximising your results. On-farm irrigation management, minimising drainage losses, minimising power usage and maximising efficiency. Soil moisture solutions, soil water holding capacity assessments, resource consent applications and on-farm workshops, all there in the one place. Hydro Services, your one-stop for irrigation management and soil moisture measurement solutions.
Jumpstart your career in the primary industries at Aoraki Polytechnic. Qualify with a New Zealand Diploma in Agribusiness Management. Study on your farm, for your farm on a project-based method. Aoraki also offers Level 2 and 3 Agriculture, Level 3 Horticulture and Epiculture for those interested in the beekeeping industry. So enrol today and get hands-on experience at Aoraki.
Are you having trouble with your old mower or just have too much grass? At Mead Mowers and Chainsaws, with our wide range of Husqvarna mowers, no job is too big or too small. We stock rotary, ride-on, zero turn, out front articulated riders and robotic auto mowers. We have the Husqvarna mower for you. Call in and visit Gavin or Peter at Mead Mowers and Chainsaws.
back to Rob's Country on the TL Parker Technology Report. My gosh, that's the title, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Repeaters.
Yes, repeaters. On-farm repeaters. We're doing a lot of this now. We're getting a lot of farms who, for whatever reason, some of them have challenging terrain and they need to expand their coverage from the handhelds. We can put a repeater on now on the farm, usually in a high spot on the farm. It's very cost efficient and...
There's a picture of one up on the screen right now.
Yes, that's right. That's one we installed a while ago on one of the station in here in Canterbury. Works very well. It's powered by solar and should, for whatever reason, we have it's covered in snow. There's redundancy built in. There's a battery that'll keep it going for 3 or 4 days as well. So, yeah, they work very well. And of course, what it does do is it extends the range over that property or your property quite significantly. Of course, you know, challenging terrain, valleys, if you're mustering in gullies and so on, it just opens that all up for you for making sure you know where everyone is.
So where there's a trig station, you put one of those repeaters? Because that's always on the highest spot, isn't it?
Yeah, well, pretty much. That's what we do. When we come onto the property, normally what we do is I'll bring a little portable repeater just to test it on the farm. We find the highest spot. It doesn't have to have power, like I said before. It can run on solar. So we just, I walk my way up or drive my way up to the highest point. We put it on there and we do a test to make sure the coverage is good. And then if that's all good, we're good to go and we can install that repeater with solar power or mains power if possible.
Fence it to stop the cattle rubbing on it?
We do that, yeah. Sometimes we've had that a few times. Generally it's not a major problem, but there are some cases where we have to bang a couple of waratahs in there and a bit of wire.
You could actually tie that into the solar power as well to keep the buggers up.
Yeah, well that's not bad.
You've got a box?
Yeah, well, that's a classic little, I suppose, one of our go-to repeater boxes. Inside that box is all the heart and soul of the repeater. So you can see it's not a very big box. It's we generally put it on a deer post or something even higher, and it's all wired up with lightning protection, and the battery sits underneath that.
Oh. That's the thought, lightning protection. You've gone to the highest spot for your repeater station, and it sticks up even further. Kazanka.
Yes, well, that does happen, and we've had a few farmers have lost phones and internet because of lightning strikes. Well, we build redundancy into that by installing very, very good lightning protection, because the aerial's poking up as well. So it's the old Einstein with the kite. Was it Einstein who had flying the kite or whatever? But yeah, so they are very susceptible to lightning strikes. So
you earth them very, very solidly.
Yeah. We generally, what we'd like to do, we give the farmer a basic schematic of what we would like you to do as far as putting the pole in, and we build make sure that it's well earthed and that we can put a lightning rod up there as well.
You don't install it on a day like we've had recently.
No, exactly. Well, gee whiz, I tell you, some of the storms we've had lately have just been absolutely frightening. So we always go for a clear day, but it's really important, and it makes sure that once the storm's passed, or if you're out mustering cattle or sheep, that you know the radio's going to continue to work.
Absolutely. So, bottom right-hand corner, what's the expense like?
Look, it's very cost effective. Some of the repeaters, you're looking, you know, the repeater itself is around the $4,000 to $5,000 mark, but there's a lot of other costs involved with regards to installation and so forth. But it still comes in a lot cheaper than, say, for some farmers than going on to a trunking network or a Canterbury-wide network. The other thing too, Rob, is that some farms, like Inverray Station, for example, they have a community repeater. So they have the repeater servicing 4 or 5 different stations off one farm. So they have their own channel, so they can operate their farm fully independent. But in the event of an emergency, a snowfall, an accident or something like that, they can switch to their selected channel and they can all talk to each other and say, hey, can you help me out with this, getting the stock off the hill?
Or fire or whatever.
Exactly, yes. So that works really well. So it becomes a revenue generating scheme as well.
Because that's a very new version of the old party line.
Yes, I remember those. Wind the handle. Is that you, Mildred?
Exactly, but I mean, you literally used that. There was an SOS. and everybody on the whole party line pick it up, and before you knew it, the whole neighbourhood was at your beck and call.
Correct, and it works very well. And look, you know, the important thing is to know that you're going to have your own channel, so no one's going to hear what you're talking about and so on. But in the event of that emergency, or maybe you just want to organise a Christmas party, and so you get on that channel and you have a good old yak. But it's there, built there for as a community repeater. So that, you know, you've got that ability to talk if in the, you know, unlikely event of an emergency.
Just get my head around this, because you've got your own one there, and this other one just overrides it when you go into the community one. Obviously, everybody knows that you are calling generally.
Yeah. So, for example, maybe there's been a very big snowfall back to '95.
Or there's a fire. Let's look at a fire.
A fire, a lot of
snowfall,
smoke.
everyone gets affected.
The go-to channel, say Channel 5, you go to Channel 5, everyone now can talk to each other. Hey, there's a fire over there on Bob's place. We probably need to go over and help him out, you know, and then you start coordinating it. For example, the one we have up at the Hakateri Valley, they have the school bus on there, and they've got the civil defence on there, so they can really start coordinating a whole lot of events. Yeah.
So, but it's life-saving. That's the thing.
Absolutely,
that's the main point, isn't it?
Absolutely life-saving. Yeah.
And you don't worry about cell phones, because this is a there.
Push a button and you're talking to whoever, your team member that's up the hill fencing, or your neighbour.
Dave, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Caught up with Jim Grayson. He was in a paddock of black currants, and of course we always have a bit of a yarn, and normally it's about the season.
Well, this time of the year, Rob, we swing away from, we still do some fungicides on various horticultural crops, but this time of the year we're looking at the insects, and there's plenty of them out there. There's the aphids, the leaf rollers, the clearwings, and they're pretty nasty jobs, and of course we've got to put insecticides on. Strategically, so we don't apply these things without having a reason to do so. And of course, in about another 10 days, we'll start to see the emergence of two-spotted mite and red-legged mite. So, and they're mainly in the apple crops and taller crops. So, the growers have obviously got to use these materials. Now, this is the time of the year, if they haven't had a good chat to their staff about safety and being responsible around these materials. I mean, they are very friendly, user-friendly, and much better than they were 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago. But they're a pesticide, and they need to be treated with respect. So all I'm saying to growers, make sure that their staff, either themselves or their staff that are spraying, have a look at the equipment. If it's not up to speed, get it up to speed, and just generally be careful.
Wear the protective gear.
Wear the protective gear, yep. Always respect the protective gear. Now, what we do see, Rob, in practice, we'll fill the tanks up and get the sprayer all full, no gear on. When they go spraying, they put the gear on. And that's the closest they're actually at with the materials, when they're actually filling the tanks up. That's when they should have the masks and the gloves on, right from the very beginning, not when they start to turn the machine on. So just a little observation one makes every now and again.
And obviously, timing is important as far as crops are concerned and the produce?
Absolutely. We've got to be very careful and diligent in terms of withholding periods, the time that the pesticides put on to the estimated time of harvest, and there's some good windows there to work with. And growers, you know, the best way to check that is to actually read the label, and that's all that information is on there, believe it or not. And talk to your advisors and make sure you do get it right. Because it's so important now. The track and traceability of crops is getting much harder. We're down to trillions, not small amounts,
minute amounts now.
Minute amounts now. And our friendly purchasers, they're being very diligent in terms of making sure there's residue, very little residue, or acceptable levels of residue on fruit and vegetables.
And watch your drifting, I guess.
Can be a problem this time of the year, Rob, especially if you've got non-bearing crops beside bearing crops. And the growers are really doing a good job in that respect. So I don't see that to be too much of a problem, but yes, it can be. And it's what Joe Blow and the arable farmers doing over the road too is very important, what may be happening in a horticultural crop 2 or 3 kilometres away. So, and in general, around the districts now, farmers share what they do, and it's minimal, the accidents we do sometimes have.
Frost damage?
Yes, we had a particularly nasty one Wasn't a heavy frost. It got to about 1.6 degree, minus 1.6 degrees, but it was the length of the frost. And I have mentioned this before. That particular frost in some areas of Canterbury went down to that 1.6, but actually went on for about 10 to 12 hours, and that's the killer. It's when that vegetation is exposed to, the young green tissue is exposed to temperatures for a consistent time rather than a short, sharp minus 3 degrees frost. And that frost event actually covered the whole country that particular time, and it was about 3 weeks ago. And we're finding that this spring has been a pretty blooming good spring actually. But when you have a good spring, you have cloudy days, you have temperatures around the 14, 15 degrees, 16 degrees. They're not hot days, and then you will have the odd hot day. But you get the winds with it, and you get the changing of direction of winds, and they're really challenging, and they knock crops around, which leads on to, if you have a look at this crop here of black currants, for instance, there's a lot of leaf tissue there now, and so the evapotranspiration opportunity is very high. You get a few warm northwest days, not necessarily strong winds, but get that on this crop, it'll be expiring probably 5 to 7 mils of moisture a day, and so you've got to replace it. You've got to put it back in there. And fortunately, this particular property is well covered with either solid set or centre pivot irrigation, and they're able to keep up and manage their water very well. But some growers do get a little bit behind, no matter what horticulture crop they're in. And when you're behind in horticulture, it's very hard to rehydrate a crop, and it does affect it quite dramatically, quite quickly.
And obviously, this fruit there, how's the fruit looking? Yeah,
it's actually looking very good across most crops. The apples have been going well in Hawke's Bay and Nelson. Unfortunately, those fellows had a really bad hailstorm in the Rawalka area, which was terribly unfortunate. No, fruit size is good. Plenty of fruit out there. There'll be a lot of thinning have to go on this year to get the crop balance. But the black currants, we're across the both main growing regions, being Canterbury and Nelson. They're looking very good. Probably the best they've looked for a long time.
Do you have to do any de-leafing before you crop a crop like this?
No, you don't. The machines have got the ability to shake the fruit out of the crop when it comes to harvest time. There will be a little bit of natural leaf senescence, like the grapes start to. They need to have their leaves away from the bunches. In this case, there will be some leaves that will fall off, but no, the machines actually cater for that and take the fruit away from the trash. Yep. In this particular, and a number of other plantations now for black currants, they actually have a system whereby they take the fruit through what we call a water bath. Now, it does two things. It's an excellent addition to our hygiene and cleanliness program and post-harvest, and that is that it will remove whatever trash may be there, but it also cools the fruit down. So if the fruit's coming out of the plantation at, say, 30 degrees after a nice hot noise day, it'll take 3 or 4 degrees out of it, which means it transports better. So there's a couple of very good pluses there.
It would also be very gentle.
Yes, it is. It is very gentle, and it does clean off the fruit very well. If you don't replenish the water in these water baths, it builds up bacteria very quickly. So it has to have fresh water going through them all the time. And of course, if there is bacteria there, that starts to ferment when it's travelling, and you get the bricks come down or the sugars come down, and you start to produce alcohol, which of course we do like, but not in black currants or any other crop for that matter.
No, it sort of takes the medicinal side of it out of it.
It does. It certainly does.
So looking forward?
Well, as they say, the season in all crops is running around about 7 to 9 days, what we would call behind the last 3 years. And I actually think it's actually running about normal, ongoing from the previous years we used to have. So we'll have some soft fruit around Christmas time, raspberries and strawberries, no trouble there. These ones, the black currants and apples and what have you, will probably start harvesting about a week later than they normally would. But if everything's equal, we should be in for a pretty good crop, I would say, across those crops. And vegetables are looking very good. We've had a bit of hail around of recent times throughout New Zealand, and brassicas especially, the ones that are quite susceptible. Fortunately, touch wood, we've dodged the bullets there, but it's a year that can create hail very quickly. We're having these northerly winds, and then we're having the southerlies. They meet, they create hail, and that hailstorm moves up a region. So we have had 2 or 3 this year. That unfortunate one, as I mentioned, in Rawalka, I had a look at that about 10 days ago and it was absolute disaster.
About 3 years before it comes back up again.
That's right. I mean, there's cambium layers on the trees that have been damaged, and that takes a while for the bud development to come back. And so, not only does the grower not have any income this year, he has very little income the following year, and then he's probably, hopefully, back to normal.
As he said, hopefully back to normal. After the break, we're going to be talking law with Harmons.
Jumpstart your career in the primary industries at Aoraki Polytechnic. Qualify with a New Zealand diploma in agribusiness management. Study on your farm, for your farm on a project-based method. Aoraki also offers Level 2 and 3 agriculture, Level 3 horticulture and epiculture for those interested in the beekeeping industry. So enrol today and get hands-on experience at Aoraki.
If you're looking for a real estate agent that is willing to go the extra mile to give you complete peace of mind, then look no further. Karen and Barry Ellis from Harcourt's Twist Care Realty are here to work for you. They believe in their brand and actively work to get you the best possible result. From start to finish, Karen and Barry Ellis will take the stress and hassle out of buying or selling. Karen and Barry Ellis, licensed agent REAA 2008.
I'm selling my home with Gavin Top of Harvey's because I know he'll get me the best possible price. Gavin even guarantees it. His buyer's price declaration guarantee gives me confidence knowing I'll get the best possible price for my house. I know I can trust him because he listens to what I want to achieve and goes the extra mile to get great results. If you want to get Gavin's highest possible price guarantee like I am, give him a call or take a look at his website and he'll get you sold.
Espresso Car Wash. Bring back the shine with options from an express wash for just $28 up to a fully detailed interior and exterior grooming package from just $63. We also offer services such as interior shampoo, wax and polish, aircon treatment, odor eliminator, vehicle destickering, the list goes on. And don't forget our gift vouchers, no matter what the occasion. Espresso Car Wash at 5 great Christchurch locations: Corner Lincoln Road and Morehouse Ave, The Palms, Northlands, Ferrymead and the Hub Hornby.
When we were kids, saving the world seemed like the easiest thing you could do. But the world has changed, and the problems are bigger than we'd ever imagined. People are starving, the environment is under pressure, the climate is changing fast, and we are running out of fresh water. There's so much distraction, it can get hard to see where you can make a difference. With so many other things going on, where do you start? Well, feeding the world gets a little easier when you start by planting the right seed. Protecting the future is possible when you know how and have help. And if we work together to tackle the big challenges, everyone can live well. At Lincoln, we're on a mission to feed the world, protect the future, and help everyone live well. So don't settle for just any future. Join us and make a difference.
Whatever the adventure, Abbey Road is Kaikoura's streetwear specialist. With a wide range of clothing for any weather and any condition, including possum merino, Abbey Road has you covered. Abbey Road Kaikoura.
Welcome back to Rob's Country. First home buyers will find, I'm sure, it's an absolute minefield out there. There's a lot of people who settle in a place as a working person on a dairy farm and they start to buy their first house. But it is a minefield.
Yes, it is, especially post-earthquakes, obviously, in Canterbury.
Don't ever go unconditional unless you've spoken to your lawyer.
Correct. Yeah, the first bit of advice is obviously come and see your lawyer before signing anything, if you possibly can. If you're putting in an offer with an agent, they'll probably pressure you to be signing in the weekend or in the evening, and you can't get hold of your lawyer. So as a backup, just put in a subject to purchases solicitor's approval clause in there into the agreement if you do sign something before we actually see it.
Subject to solicitor's approval?
Yes. Yep. The agent will have a standard clause they can put in there for you that should give you some
because
comfort.
some of them do pressure, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and there's often multi-offer situations at the moment, and you're having to put your offer in on the spot sometimes. So
Scary. So what are the main things that you should be looking at? I mean, obviously subject to finance as well.
Yeah, finance is pretty standard. Insurance, these days we always suggest putting in a subject to insurance clause. Things are starting to come back to normal a little bit now, but still make sure you've got that clause in there just in case there's any issues with getting an insurance policy in your name.
So that's because the insurance companies have changed their criteria?
Yes, yeah, since the earthquakes obviously. It's, as I say, it's opening up a bit again now, so it's not such a problem, but they can make you jump through all sorts of hoops and fill in all sorts of forms, so just get that condition put into your agreement.
I suggest, Amy, that even though you're talking Canterbury about earthquakes and
Yep.
that sort of thing, that the same criteria would be in Hawke's Bay, Northland or wherever now.
Yeah, I think in other parts of the country it's not so important to put subject to insurance, but if you're careful, you probably would, would just in case anyway.
Well, even if you've got a bad record, I suppose. to a
Yeah,
degree.
and your finance can be is subject to you having insurance as well, so it is a good idea just to put it in there.
And what are some of the other ones? This is a rollover clause, which is...
Yeah, rollover clause is probably most common if you're selling a property that you already own, so you've got quite a long time to satisfy all of your conditions. So if you're just putting in an offer that's subject to finance, insurance, title and limb, builder's report, that's probably only a 10-day period, so your vendor shouldn't be wanting to put in a rollover clause because that would be a bit unfair to try and get you
But not all vendors are fair.
True,
Amy.
that's true. But you need the 10 working days to get your limb from the council. They can't actually, or they have 10 working days legally to provide them.
They can't bulldoze you over that one.
No, not really.
Because the rollover clause basically is a vendor one,
Yes.
which says if I get a better offer,
Yep, I can cancel within I give you 2 or 3 working days notice, and if you can't confirm all of your conditions within that time, then the vendor can cancel.
okay, let's talk earthquakes.
Yep.
That's a hard one because
It
it's
is.
patched in some cases.
Yeah, so try and get information about the earthquake claim situation before you sign an agreement again. Now we're at the point where a lot of claims have either been settled by cash payouts, or EQC or Fletchers have done repairs to the property, but we still recommend taking an assignment of any residual rights that are remaining under those claims, just in case there's a land claim that hasn't been settled, or there's further damage that becomes apparent that you didn't know about before settlement.
God, who do you check for that?
You don't, but we just do. We do a deed of assignment on settlement, so that then the purchaser can contact EQC and get information in the future and make further claims.
Sounds like you should lean on your legal company quite heavily.
Yeah, we've learned a lot since the earthquakes, as well as everybody else. So, yeah, and there's also insurance claims as well as EQC. So things like driveways, paths and fences aren't covered by EQC, so there might also be a claim with the insurer. So we have to think about that. So we'll get you to fill in a checklist and things like that, so we know how much information you know.
Now, the thing is that this all goes out the window if it's an auction.
Yep, it does. Again, you should have plenty of time to get the auction pack to your lawyer before the auction. I've had some as early as the day of the auction, the morning of the auction.
That puts the pressure on.
It puts the pressure on, yeah, but I mean, it can be done. It's just important that we have a chance to look at the limb report and the title, and make sure that the conditions that, if they have put any earthquake assignment clauses into the auction agreement, that they're all correct. Obviously, an auction will be unconditional, generally. So, you need to have all your ducks in a row before going to an auction.
Get all that done, you've got your finance organised, you've got everything.
Yep, finance, insurance, everything.
And then you may not win in the auction.
So there is a bit of a cost to it, but I'd say it's worth, $300 or $400 for the peace of mind that you're not buying a lemon, I suppose.
The other thing is private sales.
So with the private sale, obviously a lot of people selling on Trade Me and things these days. So again, generally the purchaser's lawyer would draft up the agreement in that case. Don't sign any of those agreements that you can buy from a bookshop and fill in at home. It's not recommended.
It's a very subtle way of putting it,
Yeah.
actually. So be very, very careful. And the other one,
Yep.
which is a whole different subject, is as is, where is, and you go straight to your lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, again, a whole different...
I mean, we're going to take another 12 minutes if we start talking about that.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, don't sign anything, even if there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Get everything in front of your law company and basically use them as your support system.
Yeah, we know the right questions to ask generally, so that's what we're there for.
Sounds great, Amy. Thank
Okay.
goodness you are there. After the break, we're going to be talking South Island Farmer of the Year, and there's a new one.
A new companion package is a personalised service for those that need extra help and support. A cost-effective solution for someone who needs more than just a taxi driver. Our drivers are handpicked from our experienced team and specialise in providing the right support and companionship. Home safe every time with Blue Star Taxis.
When we were kids, saving the world seemed like the easiest thing you could do. But the world has changed, and the problems are bigger than we'd ever imagined. People are starving, the environment is under pressure, the climate is changing fast, and we are running out of fresh water. There's so much distraction, it can get hard to see where you can make a difference. With so many other things going on, where do you start? Well, feeding the world gets a little easier when you start by planting the right seed. Protecting the future is possible when you know how and have help. And if we work together to tackle the big challenges, everyone can live well. At Lincoln, we're on a mission to feed the world, protect the future, and help everyone live well. So don't settle for just any future. Join us and make a difference.
At NCRE, there is no job too big or too tough. We can take care of all your air conditioning, heating and electrical needs. NCRE, we'll get you sorted.
Potholes. To some, a simple hole in the ground, causing no harm and no concern. But don't let that fool you. Potholes are dangerous. Did you know potholes have been linked to numerous nasty falls and flat tires? So if you have a pothole situation on your property, don't panic. Call the Pothole Repair Company. They'll fix your potholes in a jiffy. So next time you see a pothole on your driveway or in your car park, call the Pothole Repair Company.
Welcome to Caltex Redwood. We're a family-owned business proudly supporting our local community. We're open 24/7 for fuel and shop goods, and we have an amazing team of people ready to help you. Save at least 6 cents per litre using AA Smart Fuel cards. We also offer great value on our LPG bottle fills. We have a full workshop and Bridgestone Tyre Centre. Our mechanics and tyre technicians will get your car sorted. Caltex Redwood. We're just down from St Bede's on Main North Road. Caltex Redwood. What drives you?
Jumpstart your career in the primary industries at Aoraki Polytechnic. Qualify with a New Zealand Diploma in Agribusiness Management. Study on your farm, for your farm on a project-based method. Aoraki also offers Level 2 and 3 Agriculture, Level 3 Horticulture and Epiculture for those interested in the beekeeping industry. So enrol today and get hands-on experience at Aoraki.
Back to Rob's Country. South Island Farmer of the Year is now very prestigious, and there is a new one. But before we get to meet him, Guy, you were one of the judges. It's a huge thing to try to narrow people down to 4 finalists.
Yeah, it is, Rob. Luckily, we have a pretty formatted guidelines, which sort of takes some of the subjectivity out of the process. So we go through that, put the marks together, see how they stack up, and then there's a bit of gut feel and seat of your pants stuff to finally shuffle them around. But this year was particularly close, and we did a bit of soul searching to try and separate the runner-up and the finalists. Yeah.
What are some of the criteria that you look at?
Financial comes into it, but it's not huge, which may surprise some people. But there's things like environmental management, innovation, HR, human resources. Yeah, so it's pretty broad. Consents and meeting compliance regulations. There's most aspects of running a business come into it, and so it's not all bottom line stuff. It's the whole package.
It's interesting looking back over the years. Some of them are really entrepreneurial. Some of them are corporate, and then some of them are what you would call family businesses.
Yeah. Last night, all 4 finalists were really good examples of family businesses. Even though they may have had a slightly corporate model to them, they were all multiple entities of the families were involved at the cliff face of all the businesses, and particularly the finalists. But yeah, they were all good examples of that.
They've come a long way as an an award. I mean, a few years ago it was very low key.
I guess so. I mean, I'm a reasonably recent arrival on the scene as a judge, and I know some of the recent history, but it has gone back right to the 80s, hasn't it? And yeah, the profile is getting bigger, greater, and I think that's dragging in a whole lot more diversity of finalists coming through. We had Yealands last year, we've got a pig Patoas this year. Having someone who wasn't pastorally based a few years ago would have been probably unheard of.
We had Sinlay, which is a great corporate for the whole thing.
Yeah. So we're getting a real range of businesses coming through now.
It was interesting. My understanding, Guy, was that it was sort of launched really when Rob Muldoon took off SMPs, and it was really a case of, okay, guys, we're going to have to find the cream, set a benchmark.
Yeah.
And that was great in the 80s, but that benchmarking still holds nowadays.
That's right. Yeah, and back then, farming was considered to be a sunset industry, and subsequent years have just shown, even with additional industries coming into New Zealand and growing the cake, so to speak, or growing the pie, agriculture is still our main underpinning industry, and people like we had last night are the sort of forerunners of all that.
It's no accident you've got some very good sponsors and Lincoln University Foundation getting in behind it.
Yeah, great sponsors. I'd hate to run through them all without a list in front of me, but RX Plastics, Ravensdown Summit, Silver Fern Farms. Yeah, there's more than that too, but they're really great. And without the people sponsoring it and supporting these contests, I mean, we couldn't do it by ourselves, that's for sure.
And it's not just an award. There's $15,000 worth of overseas travel for the winner.
$20,000 of overseas travel for the winner, I think it was, wasn't it?
Well, it's a huge amount.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. And 5,000 for the runners-up. So yeah, so it's a really worthwhile prize, and particularly the last couple of years, these businesses aren't just standalone businesses. They're ones that need to have a profile, and that profile is worth something to them. Like Yealands last year and Patoa this year, and even Retro Organics, the runners-up, are getting their name out there. Must help their profile. With the public and marketing and things like that. So the cash prize, certainly it's great, and yeah, take them a long way, but there's more than that to it too. So
and the BNZ's one of your sponsors.
Yeah,
and if
BNZ,
you go wandering into the BNZ brand manager and say, well, look, I've just won the South Island, or I was a finalist at the South Island Farmer of the Year. They're going to go, okay, that's fine, how much do you want?
Yeah, that's right. It really gives credibility to your business.
Yeah. And obviously it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and brighter and brighter and brighter.
Well, we hope so. And we keep thinking, gee, I wonder who's going to come up next. There must be running out of these really good, innovative businesses, but they just keep popping up and coming through. So, yeah, long may it last.
The hard thing, Guy, really is that the farming industry, and I know that Doug Archibald, who's in the wings, will back me up on this, are very, very slow at coming out and saying, I'm helpful, or I'm great, or I'm doing whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think it's a whole New Zealand thing. We're not great at selling ourselves, and we're our own worst enemies, perhaps, in that regard. And for that reason, people can nominate people to go into this contest, hopefully with the consent of the businesses going forward. But you don't have to be the one that nominates yourself. Other neighbours, friends, people who know you can nominate you.
Sponsors or the people who drive up your drive to sell you something.
Yeah, and I think since we've gone down that path, we've actually got more nominees coming in, which has made our job harder, but a lot more fulfilling. Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing is, I guess, is that these people are actually standing up and they are gaining a lot from it, from the experience and the swapping ideas.
Yeah, that's dead right. And it's all about networking, and New Zealand's one of the strengths that comes through, I think, last night and other years, is about the freedom of giving information within industries and between industries. Everyone wants everyone else to win. There's no losers in this, and it's one of the great things about being in New Zealand. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, after the program yesterday afternoon, I caught up with Steve Stern, who is the family head, if you like, for the want of a better term, who won the award. He's a pork producer, so I asked him a wee bit about his history and how it all happened.
Well, we do run a large pig operation, producing almost 8,000 tonne a year of pig meat going off the property. All of those sows that we run are outdoors, and all the progeny are grown on deep litter systems.
And you started not early in life with 3 sows?
That's correct. Just 3 pigs in an old converted woodshed is how we got going, and that was at the age of about 39 when I first went pig farming.
Why is it so important to have outdoor pigs and having them grazing?
Really because the consumer perceives that to be a more ethical way of raising pigs, and we realised that was going to be of growing interest to the consumer very early on in our piece. I think we also feel more comfortable growing pigs in an outdoor situation and in that kind of environment.
A lot of pigs leave your place. How many a week?
We typically focus on about 2,000 to 2,200, something in that order.
So 3,500 sows?
We're a little bit more now. We're up to about 5,000 sows.
I mean, that's huge figures, isn't it? How many acres are you running them on?
We've got 580 hectares that we run the pigs on, and then we have another 100 or 20 hectares of grazing, cut and carry property.
So that's where they're sitting on pads and you bring the food to them?
No, you mean the cut and carry? Cut and carry is simply where we take a lot of the compost that we produce, spread it on the ground, and then cut the crop off it and carry it away off-site. That's in order to try and reduce our impact on the environment.
Gotcha. Now, you're also grazing under trees?
Yes, we do. That was a bit of an experiment. We weren't sure how that would work, but it seems to have worked very well without damaging the trees. And it's meant that it's a good environment for the pigs to live in. It's sheltered from the sun and the wind and most of the elements, and the pigs really thrive under it, so it's been a great success.
Steve, obviously animal health and animal comfort, vital in your operation.
Terribly. So we're pretty precious about maintaining our biosecurity. It's pretty difficult to get on site unless you have been free of contact with other pigs of any sort or pig products, and that's essential in our industry. The costs of a disease incursion are simply enormous, so we do everything in our power to try and avoid that from happening.
South Island Farmer of the Year, hugely prestigious. A feather in the cap for the pork industry that you've done it, but you're going to be humble when I say that, I know.
Yeah, it is good for the pork industry. We typically run a very low profile presence in the media, and often the media exposure we get has not been good over the years. So it is terrific to be able to be recognised as somebody who is innovative and helping to grow pigs the way that the consumer expects them to be grown.
Is this going to be the coming thing? Are people going to follow your example?
I think there could well be young farmers, young men wanting to enter farming, and I'd like to think that they took some inspiration from this story and saw that there was opportunity to enter this field. But I think agriculture in general has a huge amount to offer young men and women who want to develop a career, and I hope really that whatever pursuit young men and women want to pursue in agriculture, that they do so with vigour and with real interest and enthusiasm.
And once again, our congratulations to Steve and his family. What an amazing thing, and a feather in the cap for the pork industry, as we said. And yeah, great advice. I think that's why we do have primary ITO, Aoraki Polytech, and of course Lincoln University. The turn has been made and we're heading back to agriculture being sexy. After the break, it's going to be Doug Archbold when we talk about the Rural Support Trust.
Avoid the monkeys when it comes to relocating. Trust A1 Movers, a family business since 1993 that guarantees a professional job every time. We carefully handle and wrap your valued items, ensuring they have a safe journey. Secure storage and insurance options are also available.
A1 Movers, the careful, caring moving company. Oi!
Come on down to Ferrymead Golf. Care for a game of paintball? How about some swings on the old driving range? Or on our Par 3 9-hole golf course. Test your skills on the mini golf course or have a go at the air gun shooting range. Then relax at the Wow Cafe with one of our super succulent Wow Burgers. Whether you want to perfect your swing or are looking for a fun family day out, come down to Ferrymead Golf, 50 Ferrymead Park Drive, right next to the Ferrymead Heritage Park. Jumpstart your career in the primary industries at Aoraki Polytechnic. Qualify with a New Zealand Diploma in Agribusiness Management. Study on your farm, for your farm on a project-based method. Aoraki also offers Level 2 and 3 Agriculture, Level 3 Horticulture and Epiculture for those interested in the beekeeping industry. So enrol today and get hands-on experience at Aoraki.
Come in and meet the locals at the Bush Inn Centre. Whether it's to grab a coffee on the go or to catch up with a friend over lunch or dinner, the Bush Inn Centre is the perfect place. With our unique range of shops, you'll find everything you're looking for and more. Our friendly locals are always happy to help. We have plenty of parking at the Bush Inn Centre, making your shopping experience just a little bit easier. So come in, meet the locals and shop Bush Inn. You'll find us on the corner of Riccarton and Waimari Roads.
Shock factor to wow factor, Canterbury Colour Fun is here to change your world. From interior to exterior and everything in between, Kath has the skills and the knowledge to brighten up your home. Contact Canterbury Colour Fun for your consultation.
When we were kids, saving the world seemed like the easiest thing you could do. But the world has changed, and the problems are bigger than we'd ever imagined. People are starving, the environment is under pressure, the climate is changing fast, and we are running out of fresh water. There's so much distraction, it can get hard to see where you can make a difference. With so many other things going on, where do you start? Well, feeding the world gets a little easier when you start by planting the right seed. Protecting the future is possible when you know how and have help. And if we work together to tackle the big challenges, everyone can live well. At Lincoln, we're on a mission to feed the world, protect the future, and help everyone live well. So don't settle for just any future. Join us and make a difference.
Welcome back to Rob's Country. Doug, you've just had your biannual national conference for the trusts, plural. How did it go?
Well, obviously, Rob, I've been to quite a few conferences in my time, and I think the real theme of this conference was a rural support trust looking into the future, and things like succession, for instance. We're all getting older, and it's the same in a lot of farming organisations where it's difficult to get younger people involved, and that is one of the things that is really important to trusts, that we do get those younger people involved. And when I say to you that some of the trusts are now involved with social media, you'll appreciate for someone like me that is a bit of a foreign language.
Somebody like us, Doug.
Yeah. So, for instance, in the Northland floods recently, the Northland Rural Support Trust did a lot of stuff on Facebook, and that is how they kept in touch with farmers. So that's obviously something that we've got to look at in our trust, and we've just brought 2 people into our trust who are at least 20 years younger than me, and have got really good skills in that area. So that's one of the areas that we'll be looking at. I mean, have you heard of Snapchat and Instagram? You've probably heard of Twitter, because that was a bit notorious, Twitter, recently. So these are some of the things we're doing. The other issue, which has been around for a long time, is farmer mental wellness, and we had a couple of sessions on that. And there's a guy in Southland who's developed a very short, sharp program on mental health, identifying depression and being able to talk to people with depression, and that's been trialled around Southland. And it can be a 1 hour or a 2 hour course, and it's very handy for instance, rural bank staff of a bank can come in their lunch hour and go through this course. It goes out to vets and stock agents and these people who are dealing with farmers. And of course on that, we are still hopeful in North Canterbury that we may get John Kerwin involved at some stage over the next few months in North Canterbury, because wherever he has been, there's been a huge turnout of farmers to listen to him.
For the last probably 15 years, I've been hammering the same drum and saying, you know, you've actually got to listen, you've got to be able to talk, but I also know that you can't talk, you won't talk, you just don't want to know about it.
That's right, and you know, sometimes I've heard instances where a farmer has been recommended for professional help and he has to go into the middle of Christchurch to see a psychiatrist. Well, you'll understand a farmer out of his own comfort zone, that is not really going to work. We really need to get people out to the farm and talk to a farmer on his own ground, where he will be more relaxed and able to talk about the things that are worrying him.
Doug, I want to talk to you a wee bit about counselling, because people have got, in many cases, a totally wrong impression of it. It's not actually, because I know perfectly well from being Rob Cope-Williams that I didn't want to go anywhere near counselling, and yet when I did go, and I am going, it's actually teaching me to use my head and how to sort myself out. So it's not actually sitting there on a loungy chair sort of a thing and telling what happened in my childhood.
That's right.
But people don't understand that.
No, and I think one of the things that a good counsellor does is it teaches you coping strategies and gets a message through to you that my understanding is about at least 40% of people have had some form of mental illness in their lives, so you're not alone. There is a lot of people that have these problems, and the trick is to get the right help and the right counsellor. I mean,
but how do you know which is getting the good counsellor? I mean, it's like a really good accountant or a really good architect.
We are, the Rural Support Trust is trying to establish one or two counsellors who are prepared to come out. I mean, if you're talking to an older, conservative North Canterbury farmer and you send a young guy straight out of school full of theory and touchy-feely stuff, I mean, it's just not going to work.
Mm. That's very important, that you get those two people, the counsellor and the person, because, as I said, it's very important. You're not having to bare your soul, they're teaching you how to handle things.
That's right, and in a lot of cases, a layman like myself, I've done a bit of that, and you know, if it's beyond me, I can get a counsellor and a professional person involved. But a lot of times, farmers, they just want to talk things out, and sometimes once you get the trust and confidence of a farmer, it's actually a job to stop him.
Yeah, but you haven't got that much time, because he's got cows to milk, or she's got cows to milk, or, you know, I mean, it's a tough one.
And this is part of the whole thing. I mean, farming has become very pressurised, and it's a busy life, and there's things are happening, and there's crises coming along all the time.
Briefly, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of dairy farmers, as well as other farmers as well, but that's where the spotlight is. Are you able to cope, you reckon, you set up?
Well, we've just got a dairy person on our trust, and already we're putting together a group who are able to go out and talk to dairy farmers, and we're involved in a gathering down in Dunsandel in a couple of weeks, where the trust will be going along and showing the flag and just letting them know that we are there in a position where we can help.
Great, and thank goodness you are there, Doug. Thank you very much indeed. You can contact Doug if you so wish through the Federated Farmers number, which, along with other numbers, is on your screen now. Rob Cope-Williams. You've either been watching or you've just missed Rob's country, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.